Welcome to the Romance Fiction Club, where different romance authors come together to share their romance works. If you think our library is missing a romance genre you love, please let us know in the comments. We will do our best to make that content available. Please subscribe to the channel so we can keep creating free audiobooks for you to enjoy. Thank you so much for being with us, and have a wonderful listening.
This content is adapted in order to comply with YouTube guidelines. If you wish to access hundreds of romance novels filled with steamy scenes, join the club through the link available in the description. Please like this video and subscribe to our channel, and thank you.
Brews Sweeter Hearts, a small-town romance, written by USA Today bestselling author Andy Wayne. Chapter 1. Lily wiped down the gleaming espresso machine, its polished chrome and oak accents shining in the early morning light. She hummed softly as she arranged mugs along the counter, anticipation building for the day ahead. The smell of freshly ground coffee beans wafted through the air. "Morning, Lily," called Sophie, the town's intrepid journalist, as she breezed through the door. Her curly red hair bounced with each step. "Sophie? The usual?" Lily grabbed a mug from the neat row. "You know me too well," Sophie grinned, plopping down on a stool at the counter. She set down her leather satchel. "So, catch me up on the latest gossip." Lily laughed, frothing milk for Sophie's latte. "I'm not sure I can provide the insider scoop like you." "Oh, come on, this is your domain. All the town's chatter flows through here." Lily's eyes crinkled as she smiled. "Well, I did hear Mrs. Abernathy is planning a surprise party for her husband's 60th. Sophie gasped dramatically. "No way, I love a good party story." Lily finished the leaf design in the foamed milk and slid the latte across the counter. The cozy shop enveloped them as the day's customers trickled in. The bell above the door jingled merrily as Gregory Wilkins entered, a welcoming smile peeking out from his salt and pepper beard. "Gregory, good morning," Lily called out. "Morning, Lily. How's my favorite barista today?" Gregory's voice rumbled pleasantly. "Can't complain. Your usual double espresso?" "You do know me," Gregory chuckled. Lily turned to prepare his drink, grabbing a tiny cup and double-shot portafilter. With practiced motions, she locked the portafilter into the machine and pulled 2 shots of rich, dark espresso. The scent of the freshly ground beans lingered in the air. She added a dash of frothed milk to the tiny cup, creating a crisp layer on top. "There you are, just how you like it," Lily said, passing the drink over the counter. "Thank you, dear. You always remember everyone's special order," Gregory replied. He took an appreciative sip, sighing contentedly. Lily smiled, her attentiveness to each customer's preferences part of what made Beantown Brews feel like home. She treasured these moments, the coffee shop buzzing with familiar faces as the day began in their little corner of the world. Lily's gaze drifted over the shop, taking in the cozy scene. The rich aroma of a fresh batch of coffee filled the air as she ground the beans and loaded up the portafilter. She tamped down the grounds firmly before locking it into the machine, starting up a new pot. The hiss of steaming milk and dripping espresso provided a soothing background noise. Sunlight streamed in through the front windows, catching the dust motes dancing in the air. Lily inhaled deeply, breathing in the scent of the coffee. It never failed to make her feel at home. This shop held so many memories, going back to her childhood when her grandmother would let her sneak tastes of the fresh brew. The bell jingled again as Margie, one of Lily's regulars, entered. Her wispy gray hair was tucked under a knitted cap, her warm brown eyes crinkling as she saw Lily. "Good morning, Margie, the usual," Lily called out. "You know it, hun," Margie said, making her way to the counter. Lily prepared a vanilla latte, Margie's favorite. As the milk steamed, she leaned on the counter. "How are you today, Margie? How's that quilt coming along?" "Oh, it's getting there slowly. These old fingers aren't as nimble as they used to be," Margie chuckled. Lily nodded understandingly. "I'm sure it will be beautiful. Don't worry about how long it takes, just enjoy the process." "You always know just what to say, dear." Margie patted Lily's hand. "Thank you for listening. It's so nice to have a chat." Lily handed Margie her latte, exchanging a warm smile. She loved being able to brighten someone's day. even in a small way. The bell above the door jingled again as a man stepped inside. He had a rugged look about him, tousled brown hair, a few days of stubble, wearing a faded flannel shirt. But his green eyes lit up as he took in the cozy shop, the smell of fresh coffee enveloping him. Lily greeted him with a smile. "Welcome to Beantown Brews. I don't think I've seen you here before." The man returned her smile, a dimple appearing in his cheek. "No, first time. Just moved to town. I'm Alex." "It's nice to meet you, Alex. I'm Lily, the owner." She came around the counter to shake his hand. "What can I get started for you?" "What do you recommend?" Alex asked. Lily's eyes brightened. "Well, our house blend is a smooth medium roast. Nice balance of nutty and chocolatey notes. Or for something a little bolder, there's our Maple Falls Espresso." Alex nodded. "I'll try the house blend." As Lily prepared his coffee, she made small talk. "Are you settling into town okay?" "Yeah, everyone's been real friendly," Alex said. "And it's beautiful here. Reminds me a bit of where I grew up in Vermont." Lily's expression turned wistful. "My grandmother grew up there too. She's the one who started this place in the 60s. She carried 2 mugs over to a table, gesturing for Alex to join her. She wanted to bring a little bit of Vermont here to Maple Falls. This shop was her baby. Lily smiled softly. "She taught me everything about coffee and about caring for people." Alex took a sip. "This is really good. Your grandmother would be proud." Lily's eyes misted over slightly. "Thank you. That means a lot." Alex saw the depth of meaning behind her words. This place was Lily's legacy, her grandmother's memory woven into every cup. Lily cleared her throat and blinked back the tears that had welled up. "Sorry, I get a little emotional talking about her sometimes." She stood, straightening her apron. "Let me get back to the counter. We've got a bit of a morning rush now." Lily returned to the espresso machine where a line had formed. She prepared drink after drink, steaming milk, pulling shots, adding sweeteners and toppings. Her movements were graceful and precise, reflecting years of practice. As she worked, Lily chatted warmly with customers. She inquired about their families, jobs, lives, and she remembered each regular's unique order, not needing to ask. When there was a brief lull, Lily began crafting a latte. She poured the steamed milk slowly, then dragged the spoon through to create an intricate tulip design. A customer watched, impressed. "That's beautiful," she exclaimed. Lily smiled shyly. Just a little something extra. Her grandmother had taught her the importance of not only taste but presentation. Each cup was a work of art. As Lily slid the latte across the counter, she had a quiet moment of reflection. She felt blessed to carry on this legacy, to be woven into the fabric of people's days, bringing brief moments of warmth. She hoped she was making her grandmother proud. The bell jingled again as more customers entered. Lily took a breath, ready to serve. This shop was her purpose, her passion, a little piece of Vermont in this town she loved. Lily glanced at the clock as the morning rush wound down. It was time to tidy up for the mid-morning lull. She began clearing used mugs and plates, loading them into the industrial dishwasher. As it hummed to life, she wiped down tables and counters until they shone. The rich scent of coffee mingled with lemon-fresh cleaners. At the front counter, Lily carefully rearranged the bakery case, making sure each pastry and cookie was perfectly displayed. She added a small vase of fresh flowers, picked from her garden that morning. Stepping back, Lily admired her work. The shop felt warm, cozy, just like her grandmother's embrace. Golden light streamed through the big bay windows, catching dust motes dancing in the air. Lily flipped the open sign and stepped outside. The street bustled with familiar faces. Neighbors waved and called friendly greetings. Lily breathed deeply, taking in the sights and sounds. She felt grateful, as she did each day, to be part of this community, to have roots here like the tall maple trees shading the sidewalks. This was home. Chapter 2. At Espresso yourself. Just 2 blocks away from Lily's shop, Espresso machines hissed as they pulled shot after shot, the rich aroma of freshly ground beans filling the air. Marco, the owner, glanced around his shop, taking in the sleek wood accents, brick walls, and modern light fixtures that gave the coffee shop its trendy vibe. This was his empire, and he relished being at the heart of Maple Falls coffee culture. "Good morning, Marco," Mrs. Dalton sang out as she approached the counter. Marco flashed his signature grin, the one that had been known to make hearts flutter. "Mrs. Dalton, good morning." "I'm having the usual," she smiled. Marco winked to a barista who promptly grabbed a cup for her latte. Mrs. Dalton had been coming to Espresso Yourself since he first opened 2 years ago, and Marco knew all the regulars' orders by heart. It was part of the best practices he learned in business college. As the barista steamed the milk for her drink, Marco asked Mrs. Dalton about her grandson's upcoming Little League game. He remembered she had mentioned it last week. Mrs. Dalton beamed as she gave him the details. Marco learned well how to connect with his customers. Above all, he was a businessman. The barista had finished up Mrs. Dalton's order with a delicate fern design in the foamed milk. "Let me know how he does at the game," Marco said as he handed her the drink. "I was thinking of starting a little sponsorship program to help support the kids' teams here in town." "Oh, that would be wonderful," Mrs. Dalton said. "I'll spread the word." As she went to sit down, Marco's attention was drawn to a man peering up at the menu boards with a furrowed brow. He was dressed in a sharp suit, clearly not a local. Marco straightened his apron and headed over. "Welcome to Espresso Yourself," he said smoothly. "See anything you like?" The man turned to Marco. "I'll be honest, I have no idea what half this stuff is. I'm not much of a coffee drinker." "Well, you came to the right place to change that," Marco said with a grin. "I'm Marco, the owner. Why don't you tell me a bit about your tastes, and I'll whip up something you'll love." The man looked relieved to have some guidance. As they talked, Marco suggested an iced mocha with hints of vanilla and caramel, something sweet and not too bitter. The man agreed it sounded perfect. Marco signaled for the barista, then went on describing the exquisite blend of beans and his special techniques. The new customer seemed impressed by Marco's expertise. Marco lived for opportunities like this, not just to make a sale, but to open someone's eyes to the incredible range of flavors and experiences coffee could provide. He truly loved educating people about his craft. He handed the man the finished mocha, topped with whipped cream. "Here you are, sir, the Marco special." The man took a sip, his eyes lighting up. "This is incredible. You have a gift, my friend." Marco just smiled humbly. "That's what I aim for, creating the perfect coffee experience one cup at a time. I hope I see you back again soon." As the man sat down looking blissful with his drink, Marco took a moment to appreciate the buzz of chatter filling his shop. Watching how his business was thriving was a passion, and he was damn good at it. Marco glanced around the busy coffee shop, taking in the mix of familiar faces and new customers stopping by. His gaze landed on a woman he didn't recognize peering up at the menu boards with a furrowed brow. Marco straightened up and headed over, ready to provide some guidance. "Hi there. I don't think I've seen you in before," Marco said warmly as he approached the woman. "I'm Marco, the owner." The woman turned to him with an appreciative smile. "Sarah, this is my first time here. You have so many interesting options. I'm not sure where to start." "Well, you've come to the right place. We pride ourselves on offering unique coffee experiences here at Espresso Yourself," Marco said. "Are you interested in trying something new and innovative?" "Absolutely," Sarah nodded. "I'm always looking to expand my coffee horizons." Marco's eyes always lit up at the opportunity to showcase his creations. "In that case, let me tell you about a new drink I developed, the Vanilla Cloud Macchiato. It features my specialty vanilla bean infusion paired with a light, foamy Cascara cold foam." As Marco passionately described the nuances of the drink, Sarah listened raptly. Marco had a gift for making even a simple coffee sound like a transcendent experience. "You've convinced me I have to try it," Sarah said. "Excellent choice," Marco grinned. He led her over to the barista counter. "Let me walk you through the process." This time, Marco personally demonstrated each step: the pulling of the espresso shots, the pouring of the steamed milk, the dolloping of the cloud-like cascara foam. Sarah asked thoughtful questions, captivated by Marco's expertise. With a flourish, Marco finished the drink, handing it over to Sarah. "Here you are, my latest masterpiece," he said with a playful bow. Sarah laughed as she accepted the cup. She took a sip, closing her eyes blissfully. This is incredible. You've just gained a new regular customer." Marco beamed, savoring her delighted reaction. "So glad you enjoyed it. I aim to convert coffee lovers one exceptional drink at a time." This was why Marco got up every morning, to bring people unexpected joy through coffee. He lived for these moments. Marco's eyes lit up as he saw Alex, one of his most loyal regulars, enter the coffee shop. "Alex, my friend, your usual?" Marco called out. "You bet, Marco," Alex chuckled, making his way to the counter. "But surprise me with some new touch today. I'm feeling adventurous." Marco's mind raced, considering the perfect drink to tantalize Alex's seasoned coffee palate. "I've got just the thing. A pour-over using the new Colombian beans I just got in. The terroir is exquisite, bright, fruity notes with a smooth finish. Let me walk you through the brewing method." As Marco ground the beans and began the pour-over process, he and Alex fell into an animated discussion about extraction times, water temperatures, and how the altitude of the Colombian growing region impacted the beans. Marco's passion for the technical details shone through as he spoke. "The nuances are endless. That's what I love about coffee. There's always more to learn," Marco said, handing Alex the finished pour-over. Alex took a sip, nodding approvingly. "Superb. The berry undertones really sing. Your expertise is unparalleled, Marco." Just then, another customer, Clara, approached the counter looking uncertain. "I saw the new lavender mocha drink on the menu, but I'm just not sure about lavender and coffee together." Marco gave her a reassuring smile. "I know it sounds unusual, but let me explain." Marco smoothly transitioned into explaining the inspiration behind his latest experimental drink. "Lavender has long been used for its calming properties, and I thought what better way to de-stress than with a soothing, creamy mocha accented by floral lavender," he said. "The lavender syrup I make in-house adds a subtle perfume to the espresso that works beautifully with the bittersweet mocha. It's an unexpected but harmonious combination." Clara still looked hesitant. Marco continued persuading her, his voice warm and engaging. "Here, let me make you a small sample," he offered, already starting on the drink preparation. In a few moments, he handed her a miniature cup, the foamy mocha topped with a light sprinkling of dried lavender buds. Clara took a cautious sip, her eyebrows raising in surprise. "Oh, it's lovely. The lavender is so understated and relaxing," she said, clearly won over. Marco gave a satisfied nod. "I'm so glad you like it. That creative interplay of flavors is exactly what I try to achieve with my drink recipes." After taking Clara's order for a full-size lavender mocha, Marco's gaze swept over the bustling cafe, ensuring everything was running smoothly. The baristas were keeping up with orders. Customers were happily sipping their custom drinks. Marco allowed himself a small moment of contentment, appreciating the harmonious energy he had cultivated in his coffee house. Just then, he noticed a familiar face waiting at the counter, his social media manager, Eva. "Ava, great to see you," Marco said warmly, coming over. "Likewise," she replied. "I just wanted to let you know our latest Instagram reel received over 10,000 views. Your educational coffee series is really resonating with people." "That's fantastic," Marco said, making a mental note to think up more engaging social media content ideas. "Appreciate you keeping me in the loop. I'm looking forward to brainstorming more creative campaigns at our meeting next week." Eva nodded enthusiastically. "Absolutely. I've got lots of new strategies to discuss." They chatted a few moments more about Marco's upcoming speaking engagement at a specialty coffee conference before Eva had to head out. Marco took a breath, glancing around his bustling cafe with a look of satisfaction. This was exactly where he wanted to be, at the epicenter of coffee innovation and community. There were always more boundaries to push, more ideas to implement. But for now, he would enjoy this small moment of success. Marco took a deep breath, inhaling the rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee beans. He carefully picked up a ceramic cup filled with his latest experimental brew, a single-origin Ethiopian with notes of bright citrus and honey. As he took his first sip, Marco closed his eyes, focusing intently on the complex medley of flavors. The taste was exquisite, tangy yet smooth, with a clean, lingering finish. Marco nodded slightly in appreciation. This was one of his best creations yet. He continued savoring the coffee, noting how the flavor profile changed subtly as it cooled. Marco was intensely passionate about his craft. Being able to innovate and share new coffee experiences gave him profound satisfaction. Glancing around the bustling cafe, Marco felt a swell of contentment. He loved engaging with his customers and employees, guiding them on their own coffee journeys. The positive feedback and community spirit he had built here was immensely rewarding. Marco knew he would never grow complacent. There were always new techniques to master, beans to discover, technologies to implement. He was determined to keep pushing boundaries, to make Espresso Yourself the leading hub for coffee innovation in the region. The future was filled with exciting possibilities. For now, Marco allowed himself to relax and appreciate this moment, drinking in the sights, sounds, and aromas of his thriving business. He had worked hard to get here. While driven by ambition, Marco also knew when to pause and recognize his accomplishments. Chapter 3. Lily stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed, eyeing Marco across the street. His hammer pounded a flashy sign into place, touting some newfangled coffee concoction. She scoffed under her breath. All flash, no substance. The aroma of freshly baked scones wafted from her shop's open door. Lily inhaled deeply, the comforting sense of home, of tradition. Unlike Marco's cold metallic cafe, all sleek lines and buzzing machines, she preferred the warmth of worn wooden tables and the hiss of steam from copper pots. Marco stepped back, admiring his work. Lily raised an eyebrow. So the hotshot needed a bigger sign to draw in customers now? She smoothed her apron, as pristine as the day her grandmother had passed it down to her. Some things only got better with age. Marco's eyes met hers, glinting with challenge. Lily lifted her chin. She'd weathered worse storms than the likes of him. Her shop had heart. That was something his modern gizmos could never brew up. Let Marco and his gadgets try all the tricks. Beantown Brews had lasted 50 years, and she aimed for 50 more. As long as there were those who valued the taste of tradition, she had nothing to fear. With a final scowl in Marco's direction, Lily turned and headed inside. She had customers to serve and scones to bake, just like her grandmother had shown her. Some things didn't need improving. Lily busied herself behind the counter, pulling espresso shots for her morning regulars. The rich aroma soothed her soul, a reminder of all that was good in this world. The bell above the door jingled merrily. Lily looked up to see Marco saunter in, trademark smirk in place. She steeled herself for whatever verbal jousting he had planned. Well, if it isn't Maple Falls resident antique, Marco drawled, leaning an elbow on the counter. Lily met his gaze coolly. I see you have time to bother me this morning. Business must be slow. Marco chuckled. On the contrary, the people just can't get enough of my nitro cold brew taps. You should get with the times, Lily. All this, he gestured disdainfully around the shop, is stale and outdated. Lily crossed her arms, eyebrow raised. Funny, I was going to say the same about you. Some things belong in the past, like parachute pants and boy bands, and gimmicky coffee. The customers watched with interest as Marco and Lily exchanged verbal jabs, parrying each other's words with practiced ease. The rivalry between Beantown Brews and Marco's Cafe was legendary in Maple Falls, though underneath the bickering, a current of something more potent simmered between them. Marco stepped closer, backing Lily against the counter. His eyes danced with mirth and something darker. You can insult my methods all you want, but the people want change, sweetheart. Not this sentimental nonsense. Lily's breath hitched at his sudden proximity, her palms pressed flat against the counter behind her. She tilted her chin up defiantly. I prefer quality over flash-in-the-pan trends. Some of us think beyond the next big fad. Their eyes locked in a heated staring match, neither willing to concede. The very air between them seemed charged with electricity. Just then, Gregory burst through the door in a frenzy. "Have you heard the news?" he cried, face flushed. Lily and Marco broke apart, startled. "What's happened?" Lily asked. "Spacebucks is coming to Maple Falls. They're opening a store right on Main Street. We're done for," Gregory wailed, collapsing into a chair. Lily and Marco exchanged alarmed looks, their rivalry forgotten. The corporate giant would crush their local shops without mercy. "Over my dead body," Marco growled. "I'll be damned if some corporate monster takes over this town." Lily nodded resolutely. "We can't let them ruin Maple Falls. It's time to take a stand." The bitter rivals seemed to have turned immediate allies against a common foe. The battle for their beloved town was on. Lily's mind raced as she processed the devastating news. Maple Falls was her home, her heritage, the legacy of generations before her. She couldn't let some faceless corporation stamp out the heart of this community. Beside her, Marco's jaw clenched with determination. He had invested everything into building his business from the ground up. The thought of being swallowed by a coffee megachain made his blood boil. "We have to fight this," Marco declared, "but we can't do it alone. We'll need help." Lily nodded. As much as it pained her to admit it, Marco was right. Their rivalry would have to wait. This was about something bigger than their personal squabbles. Gregory Wilkin, the customer bringing the bad news in, was the owner of the local bookshop. "I take it as an ultimate insult to our town," Gregory announced. "We must figure out a plan to stop it," Lily replied, "but we'll need the whole community behind us." Gregory's expression turned thoughtful. "You know, I was just speaking to some other residents. Perhaps—" He hesitated. "If you two joined forces, you could lead the charge against this alien invasion. We'll all rally behind you." Lily and Marco exchanged uneasy glances. Work together? After years of bad blood between them? As if reading their thoughts, Gregory pressed on earnestly. "Your grandmother and grandfather were the best of friends once. I think they'd be proud to see you unite for this cause." Lily bit her lip, thinking of her grandmother's stories of simpler times in Maple Falls. Marco shuffled his feet, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. Finally, Marco stepped forward, hand extended tentatively. "Truce? For now, at least." After a tense beat, Lily took his hand. "For Maple Falls." The battle lines were drawn. Lily took a deep breath as she unlocked the front door of Beantown Brews early the next morning. Though she had agreed to work with Marco, doubt still plagued her. Could they really set aside their differences for the greater good? She busied herself preparing for the day, brewing a fresh pot of the house blend. The comforting aroma soothed her nerves slightly. This was her sanctuary, the heart of the community. Failure was not an option. The bell above the door jingled sharply, breaking the silence. Lily glanced up to see Marco enter, looking oddly formal in a button-down shirt. His eyes widened slightly, taking in the cozy atmosphere, so different from his own sleek modern shop. "Thanks for meeting here," Lily began briskly, motioning for him to sit. "We have a lot to discuss." Marco nodded, sitting across from her. An awkward tension hung in the air. Where to even begin? "So, the corporate coffee giant," Marco finally said. "We can't let them take over Main Street. This is our home." "Yes, our community is too important," Lily agreed, "but we'll have to get creative to stop them from moving in." They sat in thoughtful silence for a moment. "Well, you're more traditional and I'm more innovative," Marco said slowly. "If we combined our strengths, we could come up with something powerful to rally the town." Lily nodded, though uncertainty still lingered. Marco represented everything she didn't trust. Flash over substance, quick profits over quality. Could they ever truly work together? Sensing her hesitation, Marco met her gaze. "I know we have our differences," he said seriously. "But we both care about Maple Falls, about our grandparents' legacy. That's what matters now." Lily managed a small smile. the first cracks appearing in the wall between them. Agreed. For Maple Falls. They then dove into a lively discussion, bouncing ideas back and forth. We could organize a big rally protesting their move into town, Marco suggested. Lily shook her head. Too adversarial. We need something more positive. She thought for a moment. What if we did a shop local campaign? We could give out stickers and signs for people to put in their windows supporting small businesses. Marco nodded, warming up to the idea. And we could hand out free coffee and baked goods from local shops to get people excited. Ooh, I like that, Lily said, scribbling notes. We could even do a big block party celebrating everything that makes Maple Falls special. Their words tumbled out eagerly as the gap between them shrank. Each new idea built on the last, their contrasting perspectives blending into something greater. The bell on the door jingled as Gregory walked in. How's the planning going? He asked. Really well, Lily said enthusiastically. We're going to fight back by celebrating everything we love about this town. The corporate giant won't know what hit them, Marco added with a grin. Gregory smiled, heart swelling with hope. Now that's the spirit, he said. Together, we're unstoppable. I think we're really onto something here, Lily said, her voice brimming with excitement. She glanced over at Marco, expecting to see that familiar smug grin of his, but instead, his expression held a genuine warmth. Their eyes met and lingered for a moment before Lily quickly looked away, a faint blush rising on her cheeks. Marco cleared his throat. Yeah, this could be great. I mean, who doesn't love a good block party? Lily smiled. Exactly. We'll get the whole town involved. Music, food, games. It'll be a real community celebration. And a perfect way to showcase all the local businesses, Marco added. Gregory looked on benevolently. The two of you balance each other out perfectly. Lily's heart and Marco's moxie. Together, you're unstoppable. Lily ducked her head, touched. Marco looked thoughtful. Well, we better get back to planning, Lily said briskly, though her cheeks were still flushed. The three of them huddled around the table, their heads bent together. A new energy hummed in the air, the first buds of unity blossoming after a long winter frost. Chapter 4. Lily paused, hand stilling on the espresso machine. The clock ticked mockingly loud in the empty cafe. She should be brewing the dark roast right now, greeting her regulars with warm smiles. Instead, dread knotted her stomach. Beantown Brews had weathered its share of storms, the recession, new competition, but Lily feared Spacebucks Corporate would blast her grandmother's legacy away for good. Lily glanced around the cafe, picturing the laughing college students crammed around tables, artists scribbling in leather journals, young parents exchanging tips while kids played. The heart of the community. If a mega coffee franchising moved in, how long could she keep her doors open? Would her customers abandon her in favor of convenient drive-thrus and trendy beverages? Lily wouldn't let the corporate monster devour all that her grandmother built. She couldn't fail her or her daughter. Beantown was more than a business. It was their home. Lily would fight tooth and nail before giving it up without a battle. She straightened her shoulders, eyes flashing. Let them come. She'd show them what true loyalty looked like in a small town. Lily's thoughts drifted to her grandmother, the formidable woman who had founded Beantown Brews over 40 years ago. She could still picture Grammy behind the counter, hair swept back in her signature red bandana, chatting and laughing with customers as she steamed milk for lattes. Grammy had poured her whole heart into Beantown. Through booms and busts, she'd kept the doors open, serving as barista, accountant, custodian, whatever the business needed. Lily had practically grown up amongst the hissing espresso machines and rich aroma of roasted coffee beans. When Grammy passed, she'd left the cafe to Lily, knowing her granddaughter shared her passion. And Lily had gladly taken up the mantle, determined to preserve the welcoming haven Grammy had created. Spacebucks threatened everything Grammy had built. What would she think about faceless executives in suits plotting Beantown's demise? Anger simmered in Lily's chest. She wouldn't let them trample Grammy's legacy. A photo of Lily's daughter, Emma, smiled at her from the counter. Bubbly, artistic Emma, who loved staging plays and tea parties for her stuffed animals amongst the cafe tables. Would Spacebucks steal away her childhood haunt too? Lily ached to give Emma the stable, nurturing environment she'd known growing up, the security of having Beantown and its community as an anchor through life's storms. She couldn't stand to see confusion or disappointment in her daughter's eyes if Lily lost this fight. Jaw set, Lily smoothed her apron. She would tap into Grammy's fierce spirit and stand firm, for her daughter's future, for the town she loved. Beantown would not go down without an all-out war. 2 blocks away, Marco frowned as he wiped down the gleaming espresso machine, his usual swagger replaced by a furrowed brow. The news about Spacebuck's arrival weighed heavily, even in his trendy cafe with its sleek modern finishes. He built Espresso yourself from nothing, putting his business degree and corporate experience to work. He took pride in introducing Maple Falls to the latest coffee technology and techniques. But Spacebucks threatened his hard-won success. Marco's competitive nature urged him to fight, to double down on his innovative approach and beat the corporate giant at its own game. A slow smile started as he imagined a marketing blitz, social media campaigns, special events to showcase his superior drinks. But a cautious voice murmured that even his scramble to innovate might not be enough alone. Marco hesitated, rolling the idea around in his mind. Could he actually collaborate with her? The notion left a bitter taste. Yet he respected Lily's commitment to her community and quality. With their different customer bases, together they might convince enough locals to resist the invaders' standardized offerings and preserve Maple Falls' distinctive charm. Marco sighed, shoulders slumping. Joining forces with Lily would require swallowing his pride. But with both their livelihoods at stake, ambition would have to share the spotlight with pragmatism. For once, his competitive zeal seemed less important than the town's future. Marco straightened, decision made. He had to do whatever it took to keep Maple Falls thriving and uniquely itself, even if that meant an alliance with his rival. Marco glanced up at the framed newspaper article hanging on the wall, his eyes tracing the bold headline, "Espresso Yourself Takes Maple Falls by Storm." He vividly remembered the reporter interviewing him on opening day, thrilled to share his vision for modernizing the town's coffee culture. The photo showed Marco as a fresh-faced entrepreneur, beaming with optimism and ambition next to his shiny new espresso machine. So much had changed since then. Now worry lines creased his forehead as he contemplated the very real threat Megamart posed. Marco cherished the independence of building his business from the ground up. He took pride in crafting quality drinks, training an expert staff, and cultivating a sleek, sophisticated brand. The thought of a cookie-cutter chain jeopardizing all he worked for ate at him. With a heavy sigh, Marco turned his focus back to the espresso machine, its familiar hum and scent usually comforting. But today, it served as a reminder of how much was at stake. If Spacebucks captured even a fraction of his customers, Marco wasn't sure Espresso Yourself could survive. His ambitious nature urged him to fight alone. But his pragmatic side knew that cooperating with Lily might offer the best chance for both their businesses. As much as Marco hated to admit it, they shared a common interest in keeping Maple Falls' distinctive spirit alive. Right on cue, the bell jingled as Lily walked through the door, face etched with worry. Marco steeled himself, pushing past his instinctive competitiveness. This called for a truce. Maple Falls' future depended on it. Lily paused just inside the door of Espresso Yourself, momentarily taken aback to see Marco looking so grave. His usual cocky grin was nowhere in sight. Lily clutched the framed photo of her daughter that she'd brought, drawing strength from it. She knew Marco cared about Maple Falls too, though they'd always clashed on how best to serve it. With the incoming threat to the town's small businesses, it was time to set rivalry aside. "Marco," Lily began hesitantly, "I think we should talk." Marco crossed his arms. "I know why you're here. Believe me, I don't like it either." Lily bit her lip. "Maple Falls means everything to me. My grandmother started Beantown Brews to be a community hub. I can't let that legacy die." Marco nodded. And I built Espresso yourself from nothing. A corporate cookie-cutter chain could destroy us both. So you'll put our rivalry aside and work with me? Lily asked hopefully. Marco sighed. I don't like it. But it's our best shot against Spacebucks. Truce? He extended his hand. After a moment, Lily shook it. Truce. For Maple Falls, she agreed. They shared a solemn look, both knowing the battle ahead would challenge them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. But united by love for their town, they were ready to fight side by side. Lily released Marco's hand and took a deep breath to steady herself. Though she had come here seeking unity, the reality of collaborating with her longtime rival was still daunting. I know we've had our differences, she began. But if we combine our efforts, I believe we can mount an effective campaign to show people why local businesses matter. Marco nodded thoughtfully. You're right. We could leverage our customer bases and community connections to get the message out. He started pacing, his earlier restlessness transforming into energetic planning. We could do joint promotions, special events, really play up the importance of shopping local. Lily smiled slightly, surprised to feel a glimmer of excitement at Marco's enthusiasm. There was no denying he had a knack for marketing. I like the idea of promotions. Maybe we could offer discounts for patrons who visit both shops in one day. Encourage them to support multiple local businesses. Not bad, Lily, Marco said with a hint of his familiar swagger. With your classic charm and my innovative ideas, Spacebucks won't know what hit them. Lily laughed. We do make a good team, though I never thought I'd admit it. Looking at Marco, she saw for the first time not just a rival, but a fellow small business owner who shared her passion for their community. So where do we start? She asked. Marco's eyes gleamed with determination. First, we plan. Then, we fight. Chapter 5. Lily paused outside the heavy wooden doors of the town hall, smoothing her floral skirt and taking a deep breath. Her nerves fluttered in her stomach like the wings of startled birds, but she set her jaw in determination. She could do this. She had to, for the sake of the shop.
Pushing open the doors, she stepped into the meeting room. Rows of empty chairs lined up before a long table where she would sit alongside the other committee members. At least she'd have the head seat.
Before she could take 2 steps, the doors swung open again behind her. Lily didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The murmurs rippling through the room said it all. Morning, Lily, came the smooth voice at her shoulder. Marco glided past, trademark smile flashing. He wore a sharp gray suit exuding confidence. Lily gave a curt nod, lips pressed thin. As Marco took his seat at the opposite head of the table, he made eye contact with each person, giving a wink here, a handshake there. Lily sat stiffly, fussing with the papers in front of her. She focused on her breathing, in and out. She could do this. Lily took a deep breath as the last few committee members filtered into the room. This was it. Time to make her case. She stood, smoothing her skirt. Thank you all for being here today. As you know, we face a real threat from the Spacebucks moving into town. But I believe if we band together and focus on our community, we can overcome this. Lily gestured to the handouts in front of each person. I've outlined a traditional grassroots approach, partnering with local schools, businesses, and nonprofits to educate folks about supporting local. She met Marco's gaze from across the table. His expression was unreadable. Spacebucks relies on technology and convenience, Lily continued. But we have something more valuable, real human connection. Our personal touch and knowledge of customers is irreplaceable. Murmurs of agreement circled the table. Lily stood taller. With local events and community fundraisers, we can remind people why independent shops matter and showcase what we offer that a chain store never could. Lily took her seat, heart pounding. She had said her piece passionately and from the heart. Now it was up to the others to decide if her traditional approach was the right path forward. Marco leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers as he surveyed the room. Lily makes good points about community, he began smoothly. But we can't ignore how much society has changed. Customers today value speed and technology as much as connection. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. We need modern solutions for modern problems. Slick social media campaigns, partnerships with local influencers to boost our online presence. Marco gestured animatedly as he spoke, making eye contact around the room. Spacebucks has an army of marketers crafting viral content. We need to fight fire with fire. Murmurs rose around the table as the committee members reacted. Tom Lewis from the hardware store scratched his beard. I don't know much about this social media stuff, but seems like you've got a point, Marco. We need to keep up with the times. But Clara Johnson, owner of the grocery store, shook her head. Lily's right, though. We can't forget our roots. Our community cares about personal connection more than flashy technology. As the debate continued, Lily bit her lip, watching opinions split down the middle. This divide was exactly what she'd hoped to avoid. Marco's confidence was unshaken. Who says we can't blend both approaches? Modern marketing to draw eyes, community events to connect hearts. We take the best of both worlds. Lily sighed. As much as she hated to admit it, Marco's compromise made sense. She met his gaze and gave a single nod. If they joined forces, they just might have a chance against Spacebucks after all. Lily responded, With all due respect, Marco, I don't think your modern strategies will work alone. Our community values tradition and personal relationships. My customers are loyal because I know their families, their stories. They come for the coffee but stay for the sense of belonging. She leaned forward, meeting the eyes of the committee members one by one. When my grandmother started this place, it became the heart of Maple Falls. We can't let Spacebucks rip that heart out. Marco scoffed, his expression incredulous. That's sentimental but useless. Nostalgia won't save a failing business model. We need digital transformation. Lily felt her shoulders tense, hands clenching into fists under the table. Marco's flippant dismissal of all she held dear ignited her frustration. Useless? This cafe is deeply woven into the fabric of Maple Falls. Generations have grown up here, finding jobs, friendships, even love. Her voice grew heated, bordering on anger. Spacebuck sees us as just another market to conquer, but Beantown Brews is family. She took a shaky breath, willing herself to stay calm. Marco stared back at her, eyebrows raised in surprise. The other committee members watched on, captivated by the growing tension between the rivals. Lily smoothed her hair and skirt, regaining composure. All I ask is that we consider both new ideas and old. Our traditions and personal connections can coexist with modernization. We don't have to lose our soul. She held Marco's gaze steadily. For the first time, she saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Marco leaned back in his chair, regarding Lily with a contemplative look. When he spoke, his voice was controlled but firm. I understand your attachment to tradition, but the hard truth is that nostalgia doesn't pay the bills. We're facing an existential threat, and we need real, innovative solutions. He gestured expansively, making eye contact with the committee members. Spacebucks has massive financial backing, not to mention cutting-edge technology and marketing. They'll crush old-fashioned shops like yours. Lily bristled at his words, but Marco pressed on. We can't bury our heads in the sand. The world is changing, and we need to change too. Embrace e-commerce, social media, automation, anything that gives us an edge. He slapped his hand on the table for emphasis. I know it's difficult, but we have to look forward, not back. Maple Falls deserves better than boarded-up storefronts and lost jobs. We can honor tradition while still evolving. Marco's voice took on a persuasive, rallying tone. With the right strategy, we can win. But we have to be open to fresh thinking. He looked around the room, making deliberate eye contact with each person. Who's with me? Who's ready to take Maple Falls into the future? The committee members murmured amongst themselves. Lily observed pockets of support gathering around Marco. She felt profoundly unsettled, seeing tradition being dismissed so easily. This was about more than business. It was about preserving the soul of Maple Falls. She had to make them understand before it was too late. The debate was far from over. Lily took a deep breath, steadying herself. She met Marco's gaze directly. "No one is disputing that changes are happening," she began. "But sweeping innovation isn't always the answer." Lily's voice rang with quiet conviction. "What makes Maple Falls special is our sense of community, our common history. Coffee shops like mine have been gathering places for generations of families. That's not something an algorithm can replace." She looked around the room imploringly. "When your children come in after school for hot chocolate, when Mrs. Abernathy knits blankets for the hospital in the corner, when a cafe hosts an art show for local students, that's the heart of Maple Falls. That's what's at stake." Marco shifted in his seat, arms crossed. Lily could tell her words had struck a chord with some committee members. She pressed on earnestly. "I know the world is changing, but we can thoughtfully evolve while still honoring what makes this town so special. With creativity and compromise, I believe we can chart a path forward, together." Lily extended a hand towards Marco in a gesture of reconciliation, this time publicly so that everybody knew they were fighting side by side and not one against the other. After a moment, he reached out and shook it firmly. There was still tension in the air, but an understanding had been reached. The meeting ended with tentative plans for a collaborative approach. As Marco gathered his things, he gave Lily a grudging nod. The soul of Maple Falls would not be surrendered without a fight. Chapter 6. Lily pushed open the heavy oak door of the town hall committee office, the familiar smell of old books and coffee enveloping her. Marco was already there, pacing in front of the large bay window that looked out over the town square, his brows knitted together. "Good morning," Lily said evenly, setting her canvas tote down on the large wooden table that dominated the room. Marco turned, his face lighting up when he saw her. "Lily, I'm glad you're here. We have a lot to discuss." Lily nodded, taking a seat and folding her hands in front of her. "I know. The park—" "Exactly," Marco jumped in, pulling out the chair beside her. "That corporate coffee shop wants to bulldoze right through there. Can you believe it?" "It's unacceptable," Lily said, anger flickering through her. "The park is the heart of this town. My grandmother used to take me there every Saturday when I was a little girl. We can't let it be destroyed." Marco ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I agree, but we also can't ignore the 250 new jobs they're promising. We need to figure out a compromise here." Lily bit her lip. She knew Marco was right, but the thought of her beloved park being torn up still made her stomach turn. "Maybe," she began slowly. "Maybe we could propose they build on the empty lot by the highway instead? That would still bring jobs, without destroying the park." Marco tapped his chin thoughtfully. "Not a bad idea. We'd have to rally the town behind it, but it could work." He offered her a smile. "See, this is why we make a good team." Lily returned a small smile, feeling a glimmer of hope. Maybe they could save the park after all. Lily leaned forward, a spark lighting in her eyes. "I have an idea. Why don't we go to the park ourselves and talk to the people who use it? Get their thoughts and stories about why it's so important to them." She was getting excited now. "We could record them and use it to show the corporate coffee shop the value of preserving that space for the community." Marco nodded slowly. "Not bad, Evans. Getting emotional testimonials could really help sway public opinion." He checked his watch. "Let's plan to go first thing tomorrow morning. The weekend crowd will give us a good sample." "Perfect," Lily said, feeling energized by this proactive plan. For the first time since hearing about the proposed development, she felt they had a real chance of protecting the park. "No." Marco gathered up the papers on the table and tucked them into his bag. "All right, it's settled then. We'll meet at the park entrance at 8 a.m. The next morning, Lily arrived at the park entrance a few minutes before 8 a.m., inhaling the fresh morning air. The birds were singing merrily in the trees overhead, and the grass glittered with dew. Marco strode up moments later, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "Thought we could use some fuel," he said, handing Lily one of the cups. "Thanks," she said. warming her hands around it. As they walked into the park, the beauty of the space washed over them. Towering oaks shaded winding paths. Flowering bushes swayed gently in the breeze. The distant burble of the creek added to the tranquil atmosphere. Lily paused, overcome with emotion. This place is so special. We have to protect it. Marco nodded, looking thoughtful. You're right. It's really something. Just then, a group of locals came into view, parents pushing strollers while kids dashed about, chasing each other. Lily waved and approached them, Marco following behind. Good morning, she called warmly. My name is Lily and this is my friend Marco. We're hoping to speak with folks about what this park means to them. The parents greeted them politely as the kids gathered around. Lily and Marco launched into their questions, listening intently as memories and sentiments poured forth. Oh, this park is like a second home to us, one mother said, keeping a watchful eye on her toddler playing in the grass. We come here almost every day for picnics, to feed the ducks, let the kids run around. It's been the backdrop of so many special moments. An elderly man with a cane hobbled over to join the conversation. I've been coming here since I was a boy, he said wistfully. Used to play hide and seek in those bushes over there. Every summer they'd put on concerts in the gazebo. I took my wife on our first date strolling the paths right where you're standing. The kids chimed in with their own cherished memories, climbing trees, playing tag, making daisy chains. One boy said his dad taught him to ride a bike here. A girl recalled the community Easter egg hunt every spring, proudly showing the ladybug tattoo on her arm that she got at the face painting booth. With each story, Lily felt her heart swell with purpose. Marco's eyes misted over as he scribbled notes. The love for this space was palpable. After thanking the group profusely, Lily and Marco continued through the park, speaking with more locals along the way. The profound impact of the place continued to come through in every interaction. As they finally headed out of the park, Marco shook his head in awe. That was incredible, he said. This park means so much to people. Lily nodded firmly. It's worth fighting for. Their resolve to protect this beloved community treasure had never been stronger. Lily's mind was already racing ahead as they walked back to the office, eager to start organizing the heartfelt testimonials they had collected. She could envision the social media campaigns, the posters around town, the newspaper articles that would share these stories and stir up support. Marco seemed deep in thought as well, though she noticed his usual brash confidence had been replaced by a more contemplative demeanor after hearing how much the park meant to people. I think we should reach out to Sophie at the Gazette right away, Lily said decisively as they entered the office. This is the perfect human interest angle, and she could really help spread the word. Marco nodded. Good idea. I'll give her a call this afternoon. Lily began compiling their notes and audio clips, moved by hearing the snippets of laughter and nostalgic reminiscences again. No. Marco came over and put a supportive hand on her shoulder. This is going to work, he said, a new tenderness in his voice. That park is the heart of this town. We won't let it be taken away. Lily gave him a grateful smile, realizing that her once stubborn rival was now fully committed to the same cause. Lily's smile faded as she focused again on the audio recordings. One featured Mrs. Abrams, a lively elderly woman who came to the park every day with her little dogs. We just love watching the children play and seeing families enjoy picnics together, Mrs. Abrams said wistfully. My Harold, God rest his soul, proposed to me right under that big oak tree. This park is full of beautiful memories for so many of us. Lily dabbed at the corner of her eye, deeply moved. She noticed Marco looking pensive as he listened too. This park is woven into the fabric of people's lives here, Lily said. We can't let some corporate chain rip that away. Marco nodded, his usual cockiness replaced by solemn resolve. You're right. This fight is bigger than business now. It's personal. He began pacing as he brainstormed ideas. We should see if anyone has old photos of the park we could use, and maybe do some video testimonials too. Capturing people's emotions will be key. Lily smiled. glad to have this unexpectedly passionate ally. With Marco's marketing savvy combined with the community's support, she felt a spark of hope. They would save this special place that meant so much to this town. "Let's get to work," she said. "We have a park to protect." Lily's mind was already racing ahead to their next steps. "We should reach out to Sophie Miller at the Maple Falls Gazette," she suggested. As a local journalist, she could really help spread the word about what's at stake here. Marco nodded approvingly. "Good idea. Sophie seems to have her finger on the pulse of this community. I'm sure she'd be keen to cover this issue." He pulled out his phone. "I'll give her a call right now and try to set up a meeting. With her writing skills and our inside scoop, we can get people fired up." Lily smiled, glad they were on the same page. She tidied up the pile of notes and recordings while Marco dialed. "Hey, Sophie. It's Marco Santos. Yeah, it has been a while. Listen, Lily and I could really use your help with something important for the town." Lily tried not to eavesdrop as Marco gave Sophie a brief rundown of their cause. She caught snippets like special community place and corporate takeover and grassroots campaign. After a few minutes, Marco shot Lily a thumbs up. "Awesome. Let's plan to meet tomorrow morning at the Gazette office." "You got it. Thanks, Sophie. See you then." He ended the call looking pleased. "All set. She's totally on board to help. I suggested we do some social media marketing too, and Sophie knows all the local Facebook groups and Twitter handles we should target." Lily let out a sigh of relief, glad to check recruit journalist off their to-do list. With Sophie's help, they were well on their way to victory over Spacebucks. Chapter 7. Lily's heart fluttered as she stepped into the cozy meeting room, glancing around at the familiar faces already gathered. Gregory nursing a steaming mug, Sophie shuffling papers with her brow furrowed, Tommy fiddling with his phone. A swell of determination rose in Lily's chest. This was it, the first step in protecting something she held dear. "Morning, all," Lily said brightly, giving a small wave. The others looked up, offering warm greetings. Yes, she could do this with their support. The door swung open, and Lily's breath caught. Marco. His confident stride and sharp suit commanded the room's attention. Their eyes locked for a split second before skittering away. Lily's cheeks burned. Steady on. This was about the town, not her confusing feelings. Marco gave her a polite nod. "Let's begin, shall we?" His voice sent a little thrill through her. "No, focus." She took her seat, back straight, hands folded tightly in her lap. Sophie cleared her throat, shuffling the papers in front of her. "Right. Let's discuss the rally logistics. I think Town Square would be the optimal location." Lily nodded slowly. The historic cobblestone square with its wrought iron lampposts would provide the perfect backdrop. "I disagree," Marco interjected. "The square's too small. We need something larger, like Riverside Park." Lily bristled. The corporate tycoon just wanted an Instagrammable venue, devoid of local charm. She opened her mouth to object but caught herself. No, compromise was key here. "You both have fair points," she said evenly. "The square has ambiance, but the park offers more space." Marco looked surprised, then thoughtful. "Yes, I see that." He gave her a look of grudging respect. "Perhaps we could decorate the park to evoke the town's character." Warmth bloomed in Lily's chest. They could work together on this. "I like that idea," she said with a tentative smile. Sophie beamed. "Great solution. Now, for speakers, I was thinking..." The discussion flowed smoothly from there. Though Marco's flashy dreams still made Lily nervous, she had to admit his passion for the cause was inspiring. With respect and compromise, they just might make this work. Lily nodded along as Sophie outlined her comprehensive media strategy. This rally would be the talk of the town for weeks. "I'd like to help get the word out to local businesses," Lily offered. "Many supported my grandmother. I'm sure they'll want to participate." "Excellent idea," Sophie said. "Be sure to highlight the benefits of keeping commerce local." "I can handle some of the social media promotion," Marco added. My company has quite a following on Instagram and Facebook. I'll create viral content leading up to the event. Lily blinked in surprise. That would be amazing. Thank you, Marco. He gave a gracious nod. Happy to lend my skills. They shared a smile. Lily felt a flutter in her chest at this small moment of connection. Perhaps they weren't so different after all. Over the next few days, Lily visited local shops, speaking passionately about resisting corporate strong-arming. Owners eagerly agreed to attend, touched by her heartfelt appeal. Meanwhile, Marco's slick social media campaign gained traction. Lily even saw some of her regulars sharing his posts with captions like, "Save our town." When Marco suggested a joint interview on the local radio station, Lily agreed enthusiastically. As they spoke about their vision for blending tradition and progress, she was struck by how well their differing views complemented each other. By the end, Lily realized she quite enjoyed Marco's company. Their camaraderie gave her hope. With shared purpose, even rivals could become partners. The day of the rally arrived, bright and sunny, a perfect spring day. Lily smoothed her floral print skirt as she headed downtown, heart pounding with anticipation. This was it, time to take a stand for her beloved community. She spotted Marco setting up a booth, looking sharp in a navy blazer. Their eyes met, and Lily felt a now familiar flutter. Marco gave her a small smile and nod. No words needed. They were in this together. As the crowd swelled, Lily took a deep breath and stepped onto the makeshift stage. Gripping the microphone with slightly trembling hands, she welcomed everyone warmly. Thank you all for coming out today in support of our town, our homes, our livelihoods. Her voice rang out clearly. Lily spoke passionately about the park's history and her own cherished childhood memories there. Laughter rippled through the crowd as she described learning to ride a bike on these very paths. This park represents the heart of our community, she concluded. Together we can protect what we love about this town while still embracing positive change. Lily raised her fist in a rallying gesture and was met with resounding cheers. As she stepped down, Marco gave her an approving nod. She had set the tone perfectly for their cause. Marco stepped up to the microphone, oozing easy confidence. Thank you, Lily, for those inspiring words, he began, flashing his trademark megawatt smile. The crowd leaned in, captivated by Marco's natural charisma as he extolled the virtues of balancing innovation and progress with preserving tradition. He was in his element, seamlessly blending humor and passion. Lily found herself drawn in too, hanging on Marco's every word. She couldn't help but admire his skill working the crowd. A true showman. As Marco wrapped up his rousing speech, their eyes met again. The air crackled between them. Lily felt her cheeks grow warm. Throughout the rally, they gravitated toward each other like magnets, lingering touches as they passed out flyers, shared secret smiles across the buzzing crowd. This was about more than saving the park now. An undeniable connection was blossoming between them, one they could no longer ignore. The rally swelled to a triumphant finish. As the crowds dispersed, Lily and Marco were left alone near the empty stage. The setting sun cast everything in a warm glow. Lily tentatively reached for Marco's hand. He laced his fingers through hers. No words needed. They both knew everything had changed today. Between them, and for their beloved town. Lily's heart pounded as Marco gently squeezed her hand. His touch sent tingles up her arm. She glanced up at him shyly through her lashes. His eyes locked onto hers, dark and smoldering. The air between them grew heavy, charged with possibility. Lily wet her lips nervously. The crowd's applause still echoed through the park, though they now seemed far away. It was just the two of them in this moment. Marco leaned in slowly, giving Lily time to pull away. But she didn't. She tilted her chin up, lips parting in anticipation. Lily! Marco! There you are! Sophie's voice cut through the haze like a knife. They jumped apart, the spell broken. Sophie bounded over, grinning. Wasn't the rally amazing? I think we really made an impact today. Lily smoothed her skirt, cheeks flaming. It went very well, she managed. Marco ran a hand through his hair, looking flustered. Yes, I believe we accomplished our goal. Sophie glanced between them, brow furrowing. Did I interrupt something? No, Lily said hurriedly. Marco avoided her gaze. Sophie didn't look convinced, but plowed on. Well, the others are waiting to celebrate at the cafe. As they walked to meet the group, Lily's shoulders brushed Marco's. She glanced at him shyly. There would be time later to explore what almost happened between them. For now, they still had work to do. As Lily walked into the cafe, she watched with a swell of pride as the committee members mingled with rally attendees, smiles and laughter filling the cozy space. Marco stood amongst them, leaning casually against the counter as he chatted with Tommy and Sophie. Their eyes met across the room and Lily's heart skipped a beat, the charged moment from earlier still lingering between them. She tore her gaze away, focusing instead on an elderly couple sitting nearby. The rally was wonderful, dear, said Ruth, a regular since Lily's childhood. You're doing such important work for our town. Lily squeezed her hand gratefully. We're not going to let that company bulldoze our park and local shops without a fight. As she moved through the crowd, Lily was bolstered by the outpouring of support. Marco drifted towards her, handing her a mug of coffee just the way she liked it. On the house, he said with a crooked smile. We make a good team, you know. Who would have thought? Lily met his smile, the walls between them falling away. We do. Thank you, Marco. They both knew it was for far more than just the coffee. There was something simmering between them now. Chapter 8. Marco strode into Beantown Brews, a small package clutched in his hand, a mischievous smile playing on his lips. Lily looked up from the espresso machine, her face lighting up when she saw him. Marco, good morning. Morning, Lily, Marco said, leaning casually against the counter. His eyes danced with secret amusement. Lily frowned slightly, puzzled by his expression. What was he up to now? She finished steaming the milk for her customer's latte, keeping one eye on Marco as she worked. He was always full of surprises, that one. Marco waited until she had handed off the drink, then leaned in close. I've got something for you. A little gift. Oh? Lily raised an eyebrow. With Marco, little gifts were rarely little. Last time he'd brought her an industrial-sized bag of fair trade coffee beans. She still hadn't gotten through the entire bag. Go on, open it. Marco placed the small package on the counter, grinning excitedly. Lily carefully unwrapped the plain brown paper, revealing a small sack of coffee beans. She glanced at Marco quizzically. It's a new blend, Marco explained. I used your grandmother's recipe as inspiration. Lily's eyes widened in surprise. She lifted the bag to her nose and inhaled deeply. The rich, complex aroma transported her back to childhood days spent in the shop with her grandmother. Marco had perfectly captured the essence of her signature brew. Marco. It's wonderful. I don't know what to say. Lily blinked back sudden tears. I want you to try it. Marco's voice was soft. Brew us up a pot? Lily nodded, overcome with emotion. As she ground the beans, she marveled at this thoughtful gesture from Marco. Lily carefully measured out the freshly ground coffee and brewed a pot, eager to taste Marco's creation. As the rich aroma permeated the shop, she glanced over at him, leaning casually against the counter. Here, try it. She poured 2 mugs full of the hot coffee and passed one to Marco. He blew on it gently before taking a tentative sip. His eyes lit up. Well, what do you think? He watched her intently. Lily closed her eyes as she tasted the coffee, letting the flavors bloom on her tongue. Marco had perfectly balanced the nutty, chocolatey notes her grandmother favored. It's incredible, she whispered, opening her eyes to meet his gaze. You've done her memory justice. Marco's face broke into a pleased grin. I'm glad you like it. He took another long sip of coffee. For a moment, neither spoke, letting the rich brew and each other's company be enough. Finally, Marco set his mug down with a contented sigh. "We make a good team, Lily," he said softly. She smiled back, knowing he was right. They were about to create something special for the town. "You know, I wasn't sure about this at first," she admitted. "I tend to be pretty set in my ways when it comes to the shop. But this," she gestured to the coffee pot, "this is really wonderful." Marco's face lit up at the praise. "That means a lot coming from you. I know how important traditions are here." He moved closer, his voice lowering. "But traditions can use a breath of fresh air now and then, don't you think?" Lily felt her pulse quicken, being so near to Marco. There was an energy between them that hadn't been there before. "Maybe you're right," she said softly. Marco reached out and tucked a stray curl behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. Lily's breath caught at his touch. "Lily, I was hoping," Marco began, his eyes searching hers. Just then, the front door chimed as a customer walked in. Marco stepped back abruptly, the moment broken. Lily straightened, smoothing her apron. "Welcome to Beantown Brews," she said brightly to the newcomer. As she went to take the customer's order, she felt Marco's gaze following her every move. There were definitely some fresh possibilities brewing between them now. Lily took the customer's order, her mind only half focused on the task. She could feel Marco's eyes on her as she worked, causing little thrills of anticipation to run through her. As soon as she finished with the customer, Marco approached the counter again. "Now, where were we?" he asked, his voice low and suggestive. Lily felt her cheeks flush. "I think you were about to ask me something before we were interrupted." Marco nodded, leaning in closer. "I was hoping you might like to have dinner with me someday. Maybe I could cook for you at my place?" Lily's pulse leapt at the invitation. Was that supposed to be a date with Marco? It was unexpected, but certainly not unwelcome. "I'd love to," she replied, giving him a shy smile. "Yeah?" Marco grinned, looking both relieved and excited. "I'd make something special. Maybe I could even use some of these amazing coffee beans in a recipe." "That sounds perfect," Lily said. The town would surely be buzzing with gossip about Lily and Marco soon enough, but she found she didn't care. She was ready to see where this new adventure led. Marco gently squeezed her hand, his thumb brushing over her knuckles. "All right, then. I'm looking forward to it." "Me too," Lily whispered, her heart soaring. She had a feeling Marco was about to breathe some fresh life into her world, in more ways than one. Later that evening, Lily surveyed the coffee shop, now transformed into a vibrant community gathering space. The bell on the door jingled as Marco, looking sharp in a blazer and button-down shirt. Lily's pulse quickened at the sight of him. "Hey," he said warmly. "This looks incredible, Lily." "Thanks," she smiled. "I'm a little nervous, but also excited." Soon, familiar faces began filtering into the coffee shop, friends, neighbors, local business owners. As Lily gave a heartfelt welcome speech about bringing their community together, she made eye contact with Marco. His gaze was one of admiration and pride. This event already felt like a success. As she finished her welcome speech, enthusiastic applause filled the room. Marco caught her eye from across the room and gave her an encouraging wink. Lily's cheeks flushed. The event was soon in full swing, with residents enjoying coffee and pastries while browsing the selection of donated books and participating in the silent auction. Children laughed and played in the reading nook while their parents mingled. Lily floated around the shop, chatting with patrons and making sure everything was running smoothly. She regularly glanced over at Marco, who was deep in conversation with the town librarian. After a few hours, the crowd began to thin out as people headed home for the evening. Soon it was just Lily and Marco, tidying up the now empty shop. "I think that went really well," Marco said, joining Lily behind the counter. "You should be proud." "Thanks, I couldn't have done it without you," Lily replied. They held each other's gaze for a moment, the air thick with possibility. Lily felt her heart begin to race. Then, Marco slowly reached for her hand, his eyes never leaving hers. He gently intertwined their fingers, and Lily felt a spark of electricity shoot up her arm at his touch. "Lily," Marco whispered, his voice low and husky. He took a step closer, closing the distance between them. Lily's breath caught in her throat as he brought his other hand up to cup her face, his thumb gently caressing her cheek. Lily's lips parted slightly, her mind spinning. She had tried to resist her growing feelings for Marco, unsure if she could trust handing over her vulnerable heart. But in this moment, with him looking at her like she was the only woman in the world, all her reservations melted away. Marco leaned in, agonizingly slow, his eyes flickering to her lips. Lily's eyelids fluttered closed as his mouth finally met hers in a searing kiss. Warmth flooded through her body, and she brought her arms up around his neck, pulling him against her. Marco deepened the kiss, months of pent-up longing and electricity between them exploding in this perfect moment. Lily was lost in the feel of his lips on hers, the scratch of his 5 o'clock shadow, the pounding of her heart loud in her ears. When they finally broke apart, breathless, Marco rested his forehead against hers. "Wow," Lily whispered, a shy smile spreading across her flushed face. "You take my breath away, Lily," Marco murmured, brushing his nose against hers. "I've been falling for you since the day we met." Lily's smile widened, joy and desire mingling inside her. "I've been falling for you too," she admitted. Marco grinned and pulled her in for another dizzying kiss. In that blissful moment, locked in Marco's embrace, Lily knew her life would never be the same. Lily ran her hands up Marco's chest, fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt as she pulled him even closer. His hands slid down to grip her waist, eliminating any last sliver of space between their bodies. As the kiss deepened, an exhilarating rush surged through Lily's veins. She had kissed other men before, but never like this, with such fiery passion and intimacy. Marco kissed her like he wanted to devour her, like he could never get enough. It stirred feelings and desires within Lily that both thrilled and terrified her. When they finally broke for air, chests heaving, Lily noticed her surroundings for the first time. The shop was empty and silent, only faint jazz music still drifting from the speakers. Lily met Marco's heated gaze, seeing her own arousal reflected in his dark eyes. She knew if she invited him upstairs, he would follow without hesitation. A tempting prospect, but too fast, too soon. Lily rested her palm against Marco's chest, over his racing heart, as she tried to catch her breath and clear her desire-fogged mind. "Marco," she began, licking her still tingling lips. He watched her hungrily, awaiting her next words. Chapter 9. Lily wiped down the counter, glancing up as the bell on the door jingled. Marco strode in, eyes glued to his phone. His brows were knit, lips moving silently as he typed. "Good morning," Lily called. Marco's head jerked up, eyes wide. "Oh, hey," he said. Shoving the phone in his pocket, he ran a hand through his artfully tousled hair and flashed her a grin that didn't reach his eyes. Lily's eyes narrowed. Marco was many things, but distracted wasn't one of them. She watched as he ordered a triple-shot latte. His foot tapped urgently against the worn wood floors. His fingers drummed the counter until she passed over his drink. "Thanks, Lily. We talk later," Marco said. He turned on his heel and hustled out the door without so much as a backwards glance. Lily pursed her lips. What was going on? Where was last night's Marco? Lily glanced out the window just in time to see Marco disappear around the corner. Her curiosity was piqued. She untied her apron and called to her barista, "I'm running an errand. Watch the shop for a few?" Before she could talk herself out of it, Lily hurried outside. She peered around the building and spotted Marco halfway down the block. Keeping her distance, she trailed him through the historic downtown. Where was he going in such a hurry? And what had him so distracted? Lily would find out. Lily followed Marco at a distance as he weaved through side streets and alleyways. She felt her apprehension growing with each turn. Where was he leading her? Finally, Marco slipped through a side gate into the abandoned industrial park on the edge of town. Lily hesitated. The iron gate hung crookedly off its hinges, revealing a weed-choked parking lot. Marco disappeared into one of the dilapidated warehouses. Lily's pulse quickened. This didn't seem safe. But she had to know what Marco was up to. Quietly, she crept through the gate. Keeping close to the crumbling brick walls, she made her way towards the building. Muffled voices drifted from inside. Lily stilled, straining to listen. Was that a woman's laugh? Holding her breath, Lily edged towards a grimy window and peered inside. Marco stood with none other than Carolina, his stylish ex. Lily clapped a hand over her mouth to contain her gasp of surprise. What was he doing meeting her in secret? They seemed deep in conversation, heads bent close. Carolina playfully swatted Marco's arm, flashing her signature radiant smile. Lily's mind reeled. How long had this been going on? Her shock quickly turned to anger. After all Marco's sweet talk the night before, here he was sneaking around with his ex. Lily clenched her fists, blinking back furious tears. She had trusted him, but now she knew the truth. Lily crouched below the window, heart pounding. She couldn't tear her eyes away from Marco and Carolina's cozy exchange. They seemed utterly absorbed in their conversation, oblivious to her presence. Carolina twirled a lock of her long hair and giggled. Marco grinned, leaning in closer. Lily's stomach twisted. How could he betray her like this? Hot tears spilled down Lily's cheeks. She roughly brushed them away. Crying could come later. Right now, she needed to know what Marco was into with his ex. Lily crept alongside the building, searching for a better vantage point. Their murmured voices floated tantalizingly out of reach. Finally, she found a cracked window near the back door. Holding her breath, Lily peered through the grimy glass. Marco's handsome face was alight with enthusiasm as he spread a sheaf of papers across an old oil drum. Carolina nodded, interjecting occasionally as Marco pointed out details. Lily strained to hear. Were those architectural plans? Why were they meeting here, in secret, instead of at Marco's sleek new coffee shop? A sick feeling settled in Lily's stomach. Marco and Carolina seemed utterly immersed in their covert schemes. Lily had never felt so betrayed and alone. She leaned against the rough brick wall, struggling to rein in her swirling emotions. She wanted to burst through the door and confront Marco, demand an explanation for his deceit. But another part of her hesitated, worried she was misreading the situation. What if Marco had a reasonable explanation? Perhaps this meeting with Carolina was harmless. Could she really fault him for meeting with Carolina? Yet, why is she back in town? Why all this secrecy? Lily sighed, pressing her palms against her eyes until bursts of color dotted the darkness. She thought of her grandmother, the woman who had taught Lily the true meaning of grace and empathy. Always seek the truth, but lead with an open heart, her grandmother used to say. Lily repeated the phrase like a mantra, feeling her galloping pulse begin to steady. She knew what she had to do. Squaring her shoulders, Lily marched around to the front entrance. She rapped firmly on the weathered wooden door before pushing it open. Marco and Carolina jumped apart, surprise sketched on their faces. "Lily," Marco exclaimed, "what are you doing here?" Lily met his gaze evenly. "We need to talk." Marco paled, his eyes darting between Lily and Carolina. "Of course. Let me walk Carolina out and I'll be right with you." He gently grasped Carolina's elbow, guiding her toward the exit. She shot an apprehensive look at Lily as she brushed past. The door clicked shut, enveloping the room in tense silence. Marco turned to Lily, rubbing the back of his neck. "Lily, I know this looks bad, but I swear nothing inappropriate is going on between me and Carolina. We were just discussing a potential partnership opportunity." Lily crossed her arms. "A partnership you didn't think to mention to me? I thought we had a common plan." Marco sighed. "You're right. I should have told you. I just didn't want to upset you by bringing up my history with Carolina." So you thought sneaking around behind my back was better? Lily retorted, anger simmering beneath her composed exterior. No, of course not, Marco said pleadingly. I handled this completely wrong, but please trust me when I say my intentions were good. I would never do anything to hurt you or damage what we're trying to build in this town. Lily searched his face, looking for any hint of deception. Then help me understand, she implored. Make me believe this wasn't a betrayal. Marco stepped closer, tentative hope dawning on his face. Just give me a chance to explain everything. No secrets between us. I promise. Lily nodded slowly. The truth was all she wanted. Okay, I'm listening. Marco took a deep breath and met Lily's gaze. Carolina approached me about partnering to bring more technology and automation to the local coffee shops. Things like mobile ordering apps, loyalty programs, drone delivery. She has the resources to implement all of that. I know you prefer traditional methods, but I saw it as an opportunity to modernize and reach more customers. He paused, trying to gauge Lily's reaction. Her expression remained neutral, though her brows were slightly furrowed. Marco pressed on. I should have discussed it with you first, but I didn't want you to dismiss the idea outright because of my history with Carolina. I thought maybe if I got more details, I could convince you it was a good move for the community. Lily shook her head. So you were willing to jeopardize our plans behind my back for the sake of progress? No, I was only thinking of ways to improve things around here, but I realize now that I should have valued your trust above all else. Marco stepped closer and gently grasped Lily's hand. I'm so sorry I kept this from you. It was thoughtless and wrong. All I'm asking is that you give me a chance to regain your trust. I'll do whatever it takes. Lily searched Marco's face. Part of her wanted to cling to her anger like a shield, but beneath it swirled a deep longing. To believe in Marco, to rebuild what his betrayal had shaken. Could she get past this? Did she have the strength to try? Lily took a deep breath as she considered Marco's plea. She wanted to trust him again, but the wound was still raw. I don't know if I can just forget this, she said quietly. You went behind my back, Marco. How can I be sure this won't happen again? Marco nodded, looking downcast but resolute. You're absolutely right not to just brush this aside. I violated your trust, and that's on me. But I think you're overreacting a bit. He met her gaze unwaveringly. No more hidden agendas. And if you have any doubts, any concerns at all, I want you to voice them. I'll do whatever it takes to reassure you. Lily bit her lip, wavering. His words resonated with sincerity. But could she open herself up to potential hurt again? Yet when she searched her heart, she found a flickering flame of hope still burning. Marco had made a mistake, but perhaps it didn't need to destroy them completely. It won't be easy, she said at last. But I'm willing to try, if you are. But that is all for the sake of the community, for my grandma's legacy, and our town. Marco enveloped Lily in a gentle embrace. She let her head rest against his chest, taking comfort in his familiar warmth. Yet as she stood there, doubt still plagued her. Could they truly recover from this betrayal? Or was their idyllic small-town life about to be shaken to its core? Lily thought of the cozy coffee shop her grandmother had built, its worn wooden floors and faded floral wallpaper. She thought of the regulars who came each morning for their daily dose of caffeine and camaraderie. She sighed deeply, pulling back to meet Marco's earnest gaze. I want to believe we can get through this, she said, but I'm scared of what your secrecy with Carolina might bring down upon us all. Marco's face was etched with regret. I should have realized how it would look, me meeting her in secret, he admitted. But my intentions were only about business, finding ways we could mutually benefit Maple Falls. Lily searched his eyes. She wanted to trust his words, but doubt still lingered. I guess only time will tell, she said finally. For now, we'll take it one day at a time and see what unfolds. Marco nodded, looking thoughtful. No matter what happens, I'll do everything I can to protect our community. With you. You have my word. His promise gave Lily a small measure of comfort. But as Marco pulled her close once more, she couldn't escape the cold trickle of foreboding. Change was coming to Maple Falls, that much was clear. She could only pray that when the dust settled, the town she loved would still feel like home. Chapter 10. Lily paced between empty chairs and tables, flyers clutched to her chest. The rally. Would it be enough? Doubt twisted her stomach. The phone rang, shrill in the quiet cafe. Lily fumbled for it, nearly dropping the flyers. Sophie? Lily, you should have seen it. The whole town showed up for Carolina's speech. She announced Spacebucks is investing $10 million to expand here. New jobs, new shops. Lily's shoulders slumped. Sophie's voice bubbled with enthusiasm. How could Sophie speak like that about this alien menace? Is she changing sides now? Lily steadied her nerves, then tuned back into Sophie's rambling praise. One battle at a time. Lily rubbed her temples as Sophie extolled the benefits of Spacebucks coming to Maple Falls. More jobs, economic growth, convenient coffee on every corner. With each word, Sophie's voice grew more animated. Lily blinked back frustrated tears. We have talked before, Sophie. I thought you were on our side. Lily said, then pressed on. What about the local businesses, the family-owned shops that make this town special? Oh, Lily. Sophie's tone softened. I know change is hard, but sometimes it's for the best. Spacebucks has so much to offer our little town. Lily gripped the phone tighter, knuckles white. Our little town. The word stung. She and Sophie had grown up together, friends dreaming of the day they'd take over their community legacy. How could Sophie abandon their commitment so easily? I just don't understand. Lily's voice quavered. You're willing to sacrifice our heritage for some corporate giant? Silence. Then, I'm sorry, Lily, but I have to do what's right for our town. Spacebucks chose our news agency as their preferred partners. I'll be fine, even if you fail. The unspoken words hung between them like a wall. Lily swallowed hard. She thought of her grandmother's smile, pictured the for sale sign on Beantown Brew. Her vision blurred. Well, I see. Lily steadied her voice, holding back tears. I wish you the best, Sophie. I really do. Goodbye. She set the phone down gently, then buried her face in her hands. Sophie was gone. But Lily still had Marco. She had to. Lily took a deep, shaky breath and lifted her head, wiping the tears from her eyes. She wouldn't let Sophie's betrayal break her. She straightened up, gathering the flyers into a neat stack. Time to regroup and strategize. Lily's mind whirred as she mentally compiled a list of influential community members she could reach out to for support. Old Mrs. Abrams, who ran the antique shop, beloved by all for her storytelling. The Jensen brothers, who owned the hardware store, born and raised in Maple Falls. She had to appeal to their sense of tradition and pride in their home. Lily grabbed a pen and notepad, scribbling down ideas. A petition against the development, emphasizing preservation of green spaces. Testimonials from longtime residents, put into a slideshow. She even thought about the artwork Tommy had done for the upcoming art fair. Maybe it could be used for posters highlighting Maple Falls' natural beauty. The next morning, Lily walked into Espresso yourself with determined strides, ready to put her plans into action. But as she entered, the lively chatter and bustle momentarily took her aback. Marco looked up from the counter and flashed her a warm, oblivious smile. Hey, busy morning, huh? Lily managed a tense nod, the turmoil still churning within her even as Marco remained unaware. She noticed a small table tucked away in the corner, away from prying ears. Got a minute to talk? She asked Marco, tilting her head toward the table. Marco's eyebrows raised slightly in surprise, but he nodded. Sure, let me just grab Jake to cover the counter. Soon they were seated across from each other in the corner. Lily took a deep breath, deciding to be direct. I'm worried, Marco. Sophie has defected. She is going to work her media agency in favor of Spacebucks. I don't know if we can convince people to resist this new arrival anymore. She bit her lip. And I'll admit, I have concerns after your meeting with Carolina. Where do we stand in all this? Marco leaned forward. Lily, you know you can trust me. That meeting was just a fact-finding mission, I promise. We're in this together. He reached across the table to squeeze her hand reassuringly. Lily felt a flicker of relief, but uncertainty still lingered. She could only hope that Marco was still on her side. As much as she appreciated his reassurances, her heart was filled with doubts. The next morning, Lily strode purposefully down the main street, a stack of flyers tucked under her arm. The sun was just peeking over the quaint storefronts, casting a warm glow on the cobblestones. She paused outside of Espresso Yourself, watching through the window as Marco prepared for opening. He looked up, catching her eye, and waved her inside. Good morning, Lily said brightly as she entered. Ready to get started on Operation Maple Pride? Marco grinned. I talked to Tommy last night. He's on board and already drafting some social media posts. That kid is talented. He poured 2 coffees and they sat down to discuss strategy. Lily shared the flyers she'd made promoting Shop Local Saturday, an event to encourage residents to support Maple Falls businesses. Marco nodded approvingly. This is great. We'll blanket the town with these. They divided up tasks. Lily would canvass local business owners for participation, while Marco coordinated with Tommy on the digital engagement. As Lily headed out, Marco called after her. Don't worry, we've got this. Maple Falls isn't going down without a fight. Chapter 11. Lily unlocked the door to Beantown, the aroma of freshly ground coffee beans enveloping her as she busied herself preparing for the day, wiping down the gleaming copper machines and arranging the pastries in the glass display case just so. The routine soothed her nerves. At precisely 7 o'clock, Marco strode through the door, impeccably dressed as always in a tailored suit. Lily steeled herself. Time to get down to business. Good morning, Marco. Lily. He inclined his head in greeting. Shall we? They settled at a table near the window, the morning sun slanting across the polished wood. Lily folded her hands tightly in her lap. I spoke to Tommy yesterday. He's on board to help with social media campaigns. Marco nodded approvingly. Excellent. We'll need his skills to spread the word about fighting back against the corporate giant. Lily bit her lip. There was still one lingering doubt she needed to address. Marco, I have to ask, that meeting you had with Carolina? She searched his face for any flicker of guilt. Can I trust you're committed to this fight? Marco's expression softened. He reached across the table, lightly touching her wrist. Lily, you have my word. I met with Carolina only to gather intel, nothing more. His eyes locked onto hers. I'm with you in this, 100%. Lily nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. I'm glad to hear it. She withdrew her hands from the table and straightened up. Right, let's start planning. I was thinking. Just then, the door chimed as Tommy strode in. He gave them a cheerful wave. Morning, guys. Ready to stir up some social media magic? Lily laughed. We sure are. Have a seat. As Tommy pulled up a chair, Marco leaned forward eagerly. Here's an idea. What if we create a video series showcasing testimonials from locals, put real faces and stories behind why this town and its businesses matter? Lily's eyes lit up. Yes, the power of storytelling could really rally support. Tommy nodded. I like it. Very authentic and emotional. Okay, great start, Lily said decisively. But we'll need more than just videos. We need real-life events. She began scribbling notes on a napkin. I can organize a community event at the brewery, get people sharing memories over drinks, really open up about what this place means to them. Marco and Tommy exchanged enthusiastic glances. That's brilliant, Marco said. Capture their stories for the video campaign. Show what a tight-knit community this is. Days later, Lily leaned back in her chair, looking at the editing software on her computer screen. It was late, and they had been working for hours trying to piece together the footage from the community event into a compelling video. Beside her, Marco rubbed his eyes and took a long sip of coffee. "This is harder than I thought it would be," he admitted. "But I think we've got something here." Lily nodded, smiling softly. "Me too." She clicked play, watching the testimonials from familiar faces play out, each sharing their own poignant story and connection to the coffee shop. She felt Marco's eyes on her as she watched. "This really means a lot to you, doesn't it?" he asked gently. Lily turned to him, her guard dropping. "It does. This place, these people, they're my home, my family." Marco nodded. "I get it. My shop means the world to me, too." He gestured at the screen. "But with this, we might actually have a shot at protecting that." Their eyes met, a new understanding passing between them. In that moment, it was no longer about business rivalry or opposing ideas. It was about their shared love for the community. Lily smiled softly. "Well, we better keep at it then." With renewed energy, they continued editing late into the night. The next morning, Lily gazed out at the swelling crowd gathered in the town square. Beside her, Marco straightened his tie, looking equally nervous but trying to put on a brave face. "You ready for this?" he asked, giving her shoulder a gentle, reassuring squeeze. Lily nodded, steeling herself. "As ready as I'll ever be." Together, they stepped up onto the makeshift stage that had been set up. A banner reading "Save Maple Falls" hung prominently behind them. As they approached the microphone, the murmuring crowd quieted, all eyes turning expectantly to Lily and Marco. Lily stepped forward first, clearing her throat. "Friends, neighbors, thank you for coming today. As you all know, we face a threat to our beloved community." As she spoke about the proposed buyout of local businesses by the corporate coffee chain, the crowd listened attentively, nodding and murmuring in agreement. Marco looked out and saw familiar faces, customers, friends, even some local business owners who had joined their cause. When Lily finished, the crowd erupted in supportive applause. Marco took the mic next, highlighting the power of community and tradition. He emphasized that this was not just about competing coffee shops, but about preserving the heart and soul of their town. "If we stand together, we can protect what we've built here, our homes, our livelihoods, our way of life," Marco concluded passionately. Again, the crowd cheered, even louder this time. Signs were thrust high into the air declaring loyalty to local businesses. The atmosphere was electric, filled with hope and determination. As the rally concluded, Lily and Marco exchanged relieved smiles. Though the fight was far from over, today proved they had the unwavering support of the community behind them. Marco stepped closer to Lily, taking her hand. "You were amazing up there," he said softly. Lily blushed. "So were you. I think we really got through to people today." The crowd quieted, sensing something shifting between them. "Lily," Marco began, "when this all started, I saw you as just a rival, someone standing in the way of progress." Lily looked down, stung. "But I was wrong," Marco continued. "Your passion, your spirit, your dedication to this town, it's inspired me, made me see what's truly important." He gently lifted her chin to meet his gaze. "You've made me fall in love with Maple Falls all over again, and with you." Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lily's eyes glistened with emotion. "Oh, Marco," she breathed. "I feel the same way. I was too stubborn to see it, but you and I want the same thing. What's best for Maple Falls?" They gazed into each other's eyes, the air electric between them. Then, swept up in the emotion of the moment, their lips met in a passionate kiss. A deafening cheer rose up from the crowd, celebrating this long-awaited union. When they finally drew apart, Lily and Marco turned hand in hand to face the crowd, united in love and purpose. The future remained uncertain, but they knew they would face it together, for their town, their community, and for each other. As the cheers faded, Lily gazed out at the sea of smiling faces, her friends, neighbors, the people she'd known all her life, She felt Marco squeeze her hand, a reassurance that they were in this together. "Thank you all for being here today," Lily began, her voice ringing out clearly. "This fight belongs to all of us. It's about protecting something we deeply value, our community." Murmurs of assent rippled through the crowd. Nearby, Lily spotted Sophie and Tommy, their young faces alight with purpose. "We have a long road ahead," Marco added, "but we've already accomplished so much. Our voices have been heard, our stories shared. This is only the beginning." More cheers erupted, the crowd's energy reignited. "Together we'll keep spreading the word, keep gathering support," Lily continued. "We'll show the world why our little town is worth fighting for." She raised their clasped hands in triumph. Marco met her eyes, his gaze brimming with admiration. As the rally drew to a close, Lily was filled with hope. With Marco, Sophie, and Tommy's help, she was confident their grassroots effort could overcome corporate greed. Chapter 12. Lily smiled as she made her way to the counter of Beantown Brews, greeting familiar faces of loyal customers she's known since childhood. "Good morning, Mrs. Thompson. The usual?" Lily chirped, already reaching for the woman's favorite house blend. Mrs. Thompson beamed. "You know me so well, dear. This place just wouldn't be the same without you." Lily's heart swelled at the compliment. This was the perfect opening. "You're too kind. That's actually why I wanted to ask you." She went on to explain the situation with the corporate coffee chain and the upcoming town council meeting. Mrs. Thompson was horrified, insisting Lily record her impassioned testimony right then and there about what Beantown Brews meant to her and the community. One by one, Lily approached her regulars, most eager to share their stories. She scribbled down notes, capturing the essence of their sentiments. This coffee shop was more than a business. It was the heartbeat of the town. Meanwhile, Marco hustled down Main Street, emboldened with his mission. He checked his watch, noting he had 15 minutes before his meeting with the owners of the Daily Grind Bakery. They had partnered with Espresso yourself on numerous initiatives before. Marco just had to channel his natural magnetism to secure their avid support. He strode into the Daily Grind, immediately spotting the owners. "Lucy, Tom, so great to see you both." Marco flashed his $1,000,000 smile and a firm handshake. This was his element. Time to work his magic. On the other side of the town, Lily tapped her pen anxiously against her notebook as she awaited Marco's arrival. She had to admit they made an unexpectedly good team. Marco brought a creative edge to balance her tendency for caution. The bell above the door jingled as Marco breezed in, grinning ear to ear. "I come bearing baked goods and good news," he proclaimed, holding up a box of pastries. Lily couldn't help but smile back. She cleared a table and they got to work organizing their findings. Marco's presentation dazzled with visual flair while Lily's heartfelt testimonials grounded it in emotion. "I think we make a good team," Marco said, voicing her earlier thought. Lily felt her cheeks flush but didn't respond. They spent hours polishing and practicing their speeches. Lily struggled to find the right balance between professionalism and passion. Marco encouraged her to speak from the heart. His easy confidence inspired her. The night before the big meeting, they did one final run-through. Marco dimmed the lights for the full effect. Watching the slideshow of memories, Lily was filled with pride for what they'd created in this community. She glanced at Marco and saw the same glimmer in his eyes. This was about so much more than coffee. They exchanged a determined look, ready to fight for their beloved shops and bring their partnership to the next level. This battle had only brought them closer. After reviewing their presentation one final time, Lily cleared her throat nervously. "Marco, can we talk about something?" He turned to her, eyebrows raised in anticipation. Lily clasped her hands together, steadying herself. "I'm worried about Carolina and her connections on the council. What if she sways them against us?" Marco nodded, his expression turning serious. "I've considered that too. But we've done everything we can to show the merits of our shops. Our presentation is solid." "I know, Lily trailed off, emotions welling up inside her. Marco reached out and took her hand reassuringly. Hey, no matter what happens, we're in this together, I promise. Lily met his earnest gaze. In that moment, the depth of their connection was clear. This was about more than just saving their businesses. You're right, Lily said, resolve strengthening. We can't control the outcome, but we can control how we respond. Together. Marco smiled. Together, he affirmed. They stayed like that a beat longer, hands clasped, drawing courage from each other. Then Lily pulled back and stood up decisively. I should get going. Early day tomorrow. Marco walked her to the door. See you bright and early, he said. We've got this. Lily nodded, heart brimming with gratitude for this unexpected ally. As she stepped into the night, she felt powerful. The morning of the town council meeting arrived, and with it came a swell of nerves and anticipation for Lily and Marco. They had agreed to meet at the town hall an hour before the proceedings to go over their presentation one final time. Lily arrived first, dressed in a smart black blazer and skirt, her hair swept back in an elegant twist. Marco followed shortly after, looking sharp in a tailored suit. Morning, Marco greeted her. Ready for this? Lily nodded, though her hands shook slightly as she set up the projector. Marco placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We've got a compelling case, he said gently. Just speak from the heart. Lily smiled gratefully. Marco's confidence was contagious. At 5 minutes to showtime, they did a final mic check and then took their seats at the front table, waiting for the council members to file in. Let's do this, Marco whispered, giving Lily's hand a quick supportive squeeze under the table. She exhaled slowly, steadying herself. It was time. The meeting commenced. After initial remarks from the mayor, Lily and Marco were invited to present their case. Standing, they moved with poise to the podium. Marco began, his voice steady and commanding, as he outlined the detrimental impact the corporate chain would have. The bottom line is, if we let this corporate chain take over, it will destroy our community. It will push out small businesses, raise rent prices, and bring in cheap labor. Do we really want to sacrifice the heart and soul of our town for a quick profit? I say no. We must stand together and fight against this takeover, united as a community. Marco's voice boomed with determination. Lily continued, her voice trembling with emotion as she recounted the countless stories of customers who had found solace and healing through her products. With each word, her passion radiated like a fire igniting in the hearts of those listening. This is what keeps me going, she declared, tears welling up in her eyes, knowing that I am making a positive impact on people's lives. They moved seamlessly between points, playing to each other's strengths. Marco highlighted financial data, while Lily focused on community impact. Their slideshow of photographs drove home the coffee shop's role in bringing people together. As Lily and Marco wrapped up and took their seats, an anxious silence filled the room. All eyes were fixed on the council members, who wore grave expressions as they reviewed their notes. Lily reached for Marco's hand under the table once more, seeking comfort in his touch. After what felt like an eternity, the head councilman cleared his throat. We've reached our decision, he announced, gazes sweeping over the crowd. It is the opinion of this council that the proposed corporate development would irrevocably damage the character and economic health of our community. Murmurs rippled through the room. Lily's eyes widened, and she turned to Marco. Was this truly happening? Therefore, we unanimously vote to reject the chain's proposal and preserve our local businesses, the councilman continued, punctuating his words with the bang of a gavel.
The room erupted into deafening cheers and applause. Overwhelmed with relief, Lily threw her arms around Marco. We did it, she cried. Marco hugged her tightly, pride and joy radiating from his face.
As they pulled apart, they stood to celebrate with the crowd. Chapter 13. We did it, Lily cried, rushing into Espresso yourself to give Marco an impulsive hug. He stiffened in surprise before relaxing into her embrace. Lily pulled back, her cheeks flushing pink. Sorry, I'm just so excited. We defeated space bucks. Marco grinned. I know, I can hardly believe it. Your petition worked. The town council finally saw sense. His smile faded. But it's not over yet. We still have to keep our businesses thriving. Lily nodded, her joy dimming. The battle wasn't over. It had just begun. She perched on a leather armchair as Marco resumed polishing the machine, his brow furrowed in thought. Lily studied him as he worked, admiring his lean frame. Marco had worked so hard these past few months, coming up with innovative new drinks and modernizing his menu. She wished she shared his passion for change. What if... Lily began slowly. Marco glanced up, one eyebrow raised. What if we joined forces? I know how different our places are, but maybe that's a good thing. We could make something really special. Marco straightened, looking unconvinced. I don't know. We'd drive each other crazy. Lily's heart sank, but she forced a carefree laugh. You're probably right. She stood abruptly. Just a silly idea. I should get back to the shop. She headed for the door, blinking back inexplicable tears. This partnership could have been the fresh start she needed. But Marco was right. They were too different. Some dreams were just not meant to be. Marco watched Lily turn to leave, regret sinking like a stone in his stomach. He knew she was trying to mask her disappointment, but he could see it in the slump of her shoulders. Wait, he called out, moving around the counter towards her. She paused, hand on the doorknob. I shouldn't have dismissed it so quickly, Marco said gently. It's not a silly idea at all. Our places are different, but that's what makes it interesting. Lily turned to face him, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. You think so? Marco nodded. Just imagine it. Your cozy cafe ambience combined with my state-of-the-art equipment. Your classic drinks and my experimental flavors. We could make something really special. Lily's face lit up. I was thinking we could have different sections. One old-fashioned with wingback chairs and bookshelves, the other modern with sleek furniture. And in the middle, an area that blends both styles, Marco added, getting caught up in the vision. They began excitedly discussing menu options, debating how to merge their different approaches. The words flowed easily, ideas bouncing back and forth. Do you think the town will go for it? Lily asked when they finally paused for breath. Marco squeezed her shoulder reassuringly. They love us both. I think they'll be thrilled we're working together. Lily smiled, her eyes bright, feeling that spark of real excitement. They decided to make it public to the whole community, who have so much supported their fight against spacebucks. The following week, Lily stepped up to the microphone. The crowd gathered and the town square quieted, all eyes turning expectantly to her. Thank you all for coming, she began, willing her voice not to shake. As you know, Marco and I have had our fair share of disagreements in the past. A ripple of laughter from the audience. Lily smiled. But we've put all that behind us. Our two businesses have become one, and we want you all to be the first to see what we've created. She gestured behind her with a flourish as Marco pulled the cover off their sign, revealing the new cafe name, Brewed Awakenings. Another round of applause and cheers. Brewed Awakenings celebrates the best of both our shops, the coziness of Beantown Brews, and the innovation of Espresso yourself. We think it's the perfect combination for our community. Lily's voice grew emotional. Marco and I want this not just to be a new business, but the start of a new era. An era of togetherness. She reached out and took Marco's hand. We hope you'll join us for our grand opening tomorrow to celebrate this union, both of our shops and... She trailed off, blushing. And of our hearts, Marco finished, giving her hand a squeeze. More cheers erupted from the crowd. Lily smiled joyously out at the community she loved. With Marco by her side, the future had never looked brighter. As the morning sun filtered through the large front windows of Brewed Awakenings, bathing the stylish yet cozy interior in a warm glow. Lily stood behind the counter, fussing with the perfectly arranged display of baked goods. It looks amazing, Lily, Marco said, coming up behind her. "Just breathe. We've got this." She turned and gave him a nervous smile. "I know. I just want it to be perfect for the grand opening." The door chimed as the first eager customers arrived, familiar, friendly faces from their beloved community. Lily straightened up, beaming. "Good morning. Welcome to Brewed Awakenings." As the crowd grew, Lily and Marco worked in seamless tandem, taking orders and chatting with regulars about the new space. The rich aroma of fresh coffee filled the air. Then, the door slammed open. An impeccably dressed woman strode in, her piercing gaze immediately finding Lily. "Well, if it isn't the woman who stole my client," she announced loudly. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Lily blinked in surprise. "Carolina, I wasn't expecting you here today." "Clearly," Carolina said coldly. "I just had to see it for myself. This pathetic attempt to merge your failing businesses by seducing my client." Shocked gasps arose. Lily shook her head. "That's not what happened at all." "Wait, your client?" "Oh, please," Carolina scoffed. She turned to Marco. "She batted her eyelashes and you just couldn't resist, could you?" Marco stepped forward, jaw tight. "You're out of line, Carolina." Murmurs of agreement from the crowd. Ms. Betty, a kindly older regular, spoke up. "That's enough now, dear. This is a joyous occasion." Carolina glared but seemed to realize she was outnumbered. With a huff, she turned on her heel. "Don't think this is over," she threw over her shoulder. The door slammed behind her. Lily let out a shaky breath, exchanging a look with Marco. But then Ms. Betty bustled over. "Chin up now. We're all just happy to see you two finally together." The regulars voiced their encouragement and support. Soon, chatter and laughter once again filled the cozy space. As Lily gazed around at the community rallying behind them, she knew Carolina's bitterness couldn't ruin this beautiful new beginning. Chapter 14. Lily unlocked the bright red door and flipped the open sign in the window. Marco stood behind her, 2 mugs in hand. "Ready for our first day?" he asked, eyes twinkling as he handed her a mug. Lily inhaled the rising steam before taking a careful sip. "As ready as I'll ever be." The first customers trickled in. Lily straightened her apron and tucked a stray curl behind her ear before greeting Mrs. Clary, a regular since the shop first opened under Lily's grandmother decades ago. "Good morning, Mrs. Clary. Let me guess. A medium hazelnut latte with a dash of cinnamon?" Mrs. Clary chuckled. "You know me too well, dear." Lily rang up the order, asking about Mrs. Clary's upcoming trip to see her grandchildren. She loved this, connecting with people over something as simple as a cup of coffee. As Lily worked, Marco charmed customers with his charismatic grin. This partnership was unexpected, but his passion for innovation balanced her traditionalism. She caught his eye as he described the new cold brew options. He winked, and her heart fluttered. They moved in sync throughout the morning rush, Lily's focus on each customer's experience, Marco on educating them about specialty drinks. 2 different styles, 1 shared vision. The line slowed to a trickle. Lily leaned against the counter, watching Marco laugh with a customer at a table by the window. The morning sun lit up his smile in a way that made her breath catch. Maybe this wasn't just a business partnership after all. Marco finished up with the customer and made his way to the counter, grabbing a rag to wipe down the espresso machine. "We make a pretty good team," he said, glancing over at Lily with a crooked smile. Lily busied herself straightening up, hoping he didn't notice her blush. "We do. It was a smooth opening day." "It's more than that," Marco said, turning to face her. "We balance each other out. Your heart and my hustle. I think this could be the start of something special." He reached out and tucked a stray curl behind Lily's ear, his fingers lingering for a moment against her cheek. She met his gaze, her heart racing. Just then, the door chimed as a new customer walked in. Lily pulled back, flustered. "I'll grab this one," Marco said with a knowing look. As he went to take the customer's order, Lily steadied herself against the counter. She couldn't deny her growing feelings, scary as it seemed. But maybe Marco was right. Together they created something unique, blending tradition and innovation. If they brought that same care to a relationship, who knew what they could build? Lily took a deep breath and smoothed her apron. One customer, one cup of coffee at a time. She caught Marco's eye again, and they exchanged a private smile. Maybe change wasn't so scary after all. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee permeated the air as the residents of Maple Falls kept coming in for their daily cup. Lily stood behind the counter, carefully arranging a tray of homemade muffins and scones. She looked up and smiled as Mrs. Henderson, one of her most loyal regulars, walked in. "Good morning, Mrs. Henderson. Your usual medium roast with a dash of cream?" Lily asked. "You know me so well, dear," Mrs. Henderson said, patting Lily's hand. "Though I believe I'll treat myself to one of those delectable blueberry muffins today, too." "Excellent choice," Lily said, handing the paper bag and coffee cup over. "Enjoy." As Mrs. Henderson went to her usual table by the window, Marco breezed up next to Lily, 2 full carafes of coffee in hand. "The morning rush is starting. I'll top off the self-serve station," he said. Lily nodded, already moving on to the next customer. They worked in sync, taking orders, making drinks, and chatting with the regulars who depended on their morning caffeine fix from the cozy cafe. Soon the tables filled up with familiar faces. Lily overheard snippets of conversations about family, work, local happenings. She loved being privy to the rhythms of the town starting its day. Marco was making the rounds, checking on customers and offering refills. His charisma shone as he engaged with everyone. Lily noticed the book club members in their usual corner, already deep in discussion. She grabbed a chair and joined them. "So, what are we talking about today, ladies?" she asked. The lively debate over themes and characters in their latest read continued, Lily chiming in with her own thoughts. Across the room, Marco watched Lily, a content smile on his face. This cafe represented the very best of their combined passions. And just maybe, so could they. Marco turned his attention to the counter, where a woman was peering at the menu boards listing the cafe's extensive coffee options. "See anything you like?" Marco asked, stepping up beside her. The woman pondered a moment longer before pointing to one of Marco's newest creations. "What's the story behind the Maple Falls blend?" Marco's face lit up, eager to share the inspiration behind his latest innovation. "I wanted to craft something unique to our town, using local ingredients. The base is a medium roast, with hints of maple and hazelnut, and a touch of cinnamon for warmth." He grabbed a sample cup and poured a bit of the blend. "Here, try it and let me know what you think." The woman took a sip, her eyes widening. "Oh wow, you can really taste the maple. And it's so smooth. I love it." "I'm so glad to hear that," Marco replied. "The hazelnut adds an earthiness that complements the sweetness of the maple. It's been a big hit with customers looking for something different." The woman nodded enthusiastically. "I can see why. I'll take a large cup to go, and I'm definitely telling my friends about this." As Marco rang up her order, he felt a rush of satisfaction. Moments like these made all his experimentation worthwhile. If he could convert just one coffee lover to become a fan of his innovative blends, it was a success in his book. He glanced over at Lily, still engrossed in conversation with the book club. This cafe was their joint endeavor now, and he loved seeing the community gathered here, drawn in by the atmosphere they had created together. Marco looked around at the crowd enjoying coffee and camaraderie. Maple Falls had truly embraced this little cafe as a second home. With Lily by his side, he was excited to see just how far they could take it. The future looked bright for both the business and their budding romance. Marco's thoughts were interrupted by a voice calling his name. He turned to see Celia, a local artist who often displayed her paintings in the cafe. "Marco, I have a new series I'd love to showcase here," Celia said eagerly. In her hands was a portfolio bursting with vibrant abstract pieces. They're inspired by the Four Seasons in Maple Falls, using bold colors and energetic brushstrokes. I think they'd liven up your walls. Marco grinned. That sounds perfect, Celia. Let me grab Lily so she can take a look too. Lily finished up with the book club and came over. Her eyes lit up as Celia showed them the paintings, rich hues evoking images of spring blossoms, summer sunshine, autumn leaves, and winter snowfalls. These are beautiful, Celia. They really capture the spirit of Maple Falls, Lily said warmly. We'd be honored to display them. Wonderful, Celia exclaimed. I hoped you'd say that. I'll go home and frame them up nicely tonight. After Celia headed out, Lily turned to Marco with a smile. What a great way to showcase local artists. It adds so much character to the cafe. Marco nodded. And it fits right in with some ideas I had for community events here. He went on to share his vision of hosting regular open mic nights or art classes, even partnering with the local schools on storytelling events for kids. Lily's eyes shone as she listened. I love that, she said excitedly. We could do so much to bring people together and support local causes. My grandmother would be so proud. They spent the next few minutes brainstorming, the conversation flowing easily. Marco marveled at how in sync their ideas were, despite their different backgrounds. With Lily, it felt natural to blend tradition and innovation into something wonderful. Just like their cafe, their relationship was becoming a seamless merging of old and new, and Marco looked forward to all they would continue creating together. The day drew to a close, the last customers trickling out of the cafe into the cool evening air. Lily and Marco sat together at a corner table, sipping mugs of rich, aromatic coffee as soft music played in the background. Lily sighed contentedly, glancing around the now empty cafe. Can you believe how smoothly today went? It feels like this cafe has been ours forever. Marco smiled, reaching out to squeeze her hand. We make a great team, your passion and heart paired with my vision and drive. This place wouldn't be the same without both of us. You're right, Lily said. I never could have come up with some of your amazing ideas, and you've helped me be more open to change, she laughed. I can't believe we ever saw each other as rivals. I know, Marco chuckled. Though that spark between us was always there, even when we were competing. His tone turned serious as his thumb gently caressed her hand. I'm so glad we took a chance on this partnership, in business and in love. You've made me so happy, Lily. Lily's eyes glistened. Me too, she whispered. I didn't know it was possible to feel this way. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, simply enjoying the closeness. Then Marco stood, extending his hand. Shall we close up? Lily took his hand and they walked to the front door, switching off lights as they went. Marco wrapped his arm around Lily as they stepped outside into the quiet street, the lights inside the cafe going dark. Hand in hand, they strolled away, hearts full of love and heads filled with dreams for the future. The end.
This is an exclusive production of the Romance Fiction Club. We hope you had a good time listening. Please like and subscribe so that we can continue creating free content for you to enjoy. Check out our library for more exciting romance stories. Thank you and have a wonderful day. See you soon. Bye-bye.